Alright, so now that we've got our donut project, or our little test of running through Mudbox down, now it's time to start to look at when we start sculpting a character or creature. So to start off with, I suggest, especially if you're going to be taking it far, to use a biped. And there's the human body here, so a biped meaning two-legged creature. You can do something like a reptile or a T-Rex, or use these as a base template, even a bull, and just resculpt that. We'll talk about the logistics of it, and if you plan on texturing it and stuff, things that you need to do. But just to get started, we want to start with something that's a base template. Now, this human body is actually a good one to start out with, but if you wanted to start with something a little bit different, other than the human body, which is where I click here, remember Alt or Option, left mouse button, middle mouse button, and right mouse button. So this I can turn into a lot of different biped characters. I can make it taller, fatter, muscular, an alien biped with pointed ears and all sorts of stuff. But suppose I want to start with something a little bit different. So if I went to Maya, and inside of Maya, I wanted to actually use one of their pre-made base meshes. So I'd go to my sculpting tab. I click on the orange little box right here, which is the content browser. And under sculpting, base meshes are all different meshes that I could actually start in here and then spit it out and put it into Mudbox. Vehicles, weapons for props, clothing, though we had a little bit of a weird issue last time, but we'll figure that out. Bipeds, animals, all sorts of things. So, should be noted, just be careful. I don't want you to be surprised. Some of these, like the male character, are anatomically correct, so keep it clean. But we have like a default alien body. We have sort of like this monster werewolf. If your character has sort of these animal legs that where there's that extra joint in it, and they're kind of reversed. Characters that are more bulky, creature-wise, but all of these are just base meshes that you're then going to have to go in and do a lot of sculpting. And most of the time, using just the human body, this is the one that's already in there, is a good place to start from. Your character could also be a bust. So if you're just doing a head for one of your sculpts, and they have that already inside of Mudbox, you can actually go from that, and that way you can spend most of your time just trying to really detail the head out. And later on, we can get into hair cards, sculpting hair, a la Jimmy Neutron, or something like that, or potentially even using bringing the head into Maya and actually doing hair, which would be cool. But if I wanted to bring one of these into Mudbox, I would just simply go, click, and drag the Wolfman into my empty scene. There he is. And then I would export him into Mudbox so that I could start sculpting him, changing his shape, and detailing him out. So I would have to go and send him out. And basically the easiest way would be to export him out. Select him and export selection. Now, this is kind of buggy, and you have to have both programs open, but you can send it straight to Mudbox and create what's like a link between the programs. But if your computer is really having a hard time and it's just barely meeting the requirements, I strongly suggest not using this option, because you have to have both programs open, and then it tries to update them and use a lot of resources. If you got a powerful one, you may be able to do that. And we'll go over more, talk more about that later. So I'm just going to do a clean. I'm going to export this selection. I have it selected in right click, hold, go to object mode. It's highlighted green. And I'm going to go to File, Export Selection. I like to copy where I'm putting it, which I'm just putting it in the scenes folder of my room project so I can know where everything is. Give it a name. And I'm going to export it out as an FBX. Now, if you do not have that FBX as an option, it means you need to turn it on. So let's look and see where we would go if it wasn't on. You'd go up to Windows, Settings and Preferences, Plugin Manager. And these are all the little extra plugins that Maya has, and not all of them are turned on, and not all of them you want turned on, because what's going to happen is it will really bog down the system having all these on. So I'm just going to go to my search, type in FBX, and I just turn on the game FBX exporter and the FBX Maya exporter. And now I should have those options. Now I can just go out, File, Export Selection, choose the FBX export, and then I make sure under geometry, so I have to go under include, so file type options, include geometry, and check smoothing groups. Export selection, and then inside of Mudbox, File, Open, and what you'll notice is that when you go to File, Open, it's going to give you certain options what you can open, and we'll talk about some of these. So I'm going to go in, I'm going to point to wherever my actual files are. There's Wolfie, and then open him up, don't save, and there he is. And now that's how I get a model in with FBX, and you can see I can start to, depending on whichever one that I choose, I can actually go in and whichever tool and start to manipulate it. But that's how you get them in from Maya. That's how you get something that you've modeled in from Maya. If you plan on texturing it, these guys already have what's called a UV set, which means they're already laid out that you could texture them. We'll talk about this later. If you haven't UV mapped them, then you'll be able to sculpt, but you'll still need to UV map them to texture them. And like I said, we'll talk about that a little bit later. But for right now, this is how you bring models in.